Let me close the door. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, you can just go ahead and start it. You got it. Perfect. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Pregnancy Resource Summit. I know you're taking time out of your busy Saturday for this, but there are so many incredible providers who are showing up today, giving you their all, and there are so many wonderful things to learn from them. So I hope you guys get as much out of this as you can. My name is Dr. Kimmie Chernichky. Professionally, I'm a certified pediatric and prenatal chiropractor. I spend my days at the office helping growing families thrive in their health through optimal nervous system function. Personally, I'm a mama to a 2.5-year-old with another one on the way. So all the things that I'm going to talk to you guys about today are things that I'll definitely be implementing with myself in a handful of months. I'm also married to an incredible chiropractor, and we own our own practice together, Chernichky Family Chiropractic in Daleville. You also might have heard my name from the pregnancy, childbirth, and breastfeeding classes that I teach for the Blue Ridge Women's Center. I know you'll be hearing from them at another point today, but they're an incredible resource in our area. So if you haven't heard about them yet, definitely check them out. They have really, really great services for moms. I love getting to play my role for them as their birth class educator. And today I'm going to take a bite-sized chunk out of one of the classes. It's a 6-class series with the 7th class being a breastfeeding class. So I'm just going to take a bite-sized chunk out of one of them to share with you the stuff that most people are the most interested in when they take the class series. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right. I want to be really blunt with you. I want you to feel your labor discomfort. And I know that sounds really awful, but bear with me here. Feeling the natural urges and sensations that your body has during labor can actually help you in so many ways. It helps you to know when to push. It helps you to know to move into different positions, things like that. If you've never heard of the fetal ejection reflex, look it up. It's one of the most incredible ways to give birth, something I've experienced myself. It's where your body essentially does the pushing for you without you feeling labored to do so. So I think that's a really cool thing, is being able to feel the urge to push. We just have to allow ourselves to hear our body and do what it's telling us to do. One of the other things that our body does when we are listening to it and really feeling that discomfort is we can, if something is happening like baby's getting stuck in a certain position or mom is at risk of tearing, we will instinctively move into a position that is going to prevent the problem from happening or continuing. So again, we just have to allow ourselves to listen to our body and do what it's telling us to do. So yes, I want you to feel your labor discomfort, because if we don't have those signals telling us what to do, we can't do it, right? Now, don't get me wrong, there's absolutely a time and a place for medical intervention. I'm not saying that they're never beneficial, but research shows that a healthy, uncomplicated pregnancy actually yields better health results for mom and baby if no intervention takes place. So for the vast majority of women, the name of the game is to find a way to cope with the discomfort as opposed to eliminate it entirely. All right, well, I started all of this saying that I want you to feel your labor discomfort. I don't want you to be in pain. And yes, there is a difference. So to kind of boil it down, discomfort can be productive, and it's going to find you another way to do something or a better option. Pain is often described as suffering and usually creates fear and tension, and can often be counterproductive, especially when we talk about the stress hormones that it creates. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. We have something called the fear, tension, pain cycle. And this is true with most anything, but especially in labor. So the more fearful you are, the more stressed you will be. And if you're pregnant right now, I'd bet my bottom dollar on the fact that you've been told some pretty awful horror stories about labor. It's really inescapable. I've experienced it myself too. And it comes from a good place, right? I don't fault the people who are giving you these horror stories. First of all, they tell it to you as a cautionary tale because they don't want the same thing to happen to you. The other thing is that a lot of times it's their way of coping with their own trauma. So don't fault them for sharing the horror stories with you, but you just got to kind of take it for what it is and don't let it create stress. So I don't want you to create or let these stories create fear and stress for you, because what happens is then your brain will literally begin to release hormones that create tension when you think about birth and when you go into labor, and they can even stall your labor. These hormones can also cause your brain to perceive pain more readily. So fear and tension will quite literally increase your pain. And when that happens, when you have that increased pain, it's going to affirm your fear, which creates more tension, which creates more pain, and so on. And it's a really bad cycle. So I'm here to help you break that cycle. These are my top 3 things to do to break this fear, tension, pain cycle, so that you can decrease the pain that you're having in labor and decrease your need for medicine and medical intervention in your labor. So the top 3 things that you can do, and I'm going to break it down into little tools within each one. Top 3 things are tend to your mindset, tend to your body, and tend to your environment. So let's break each of those down. Tending to your mindset. So I already mentioned this one. Understand the role that these horror stories play. Let it kind of be, I always like to say it's about you, not me. Just kind of say, okay, well, they wanted to get it off their chest. It was their way of coping. I don't let it sink into my heart, and I don't let it, or I don't tell myself that might happen to me, because the chances are it probably won't happen to you. So don't think that, don't assume that. Just tell them thank you for sharing and let it roll off your shoulders. The next thing you can do is listen to, watch, or read positive birth stories. All you have to do is Google them. You should see tons come up. If you go to mamanatural.com, she actually has a whole, I think it's a whole section on her website that's all positive birth stories. And if you have a specific type of birth that you know you'll be going through, look up birth stories, positive birth stories specific to that. So for example, if you were pregnant with twins, search positive twin birth stories. If you know you're having a C-section, search positive C-section birth stories. If you know that you're going to have an induction or might be at risk of an induction, look up positive induction birth stories, that type of thing. All right, the next one is to make good use of birth affirmations. So birth affirmations are just mantras that you're going to be telling yourself, or someone can be reading to you to help with your mindset through labor. So these can be things like down and out, it's power, not pain. It's each surge is bringing my baby closer to me. Different words hold different power for each person. So I want you to look up birth affirmations ahead of time. You can make a notebook of them. You can make pretty cards with them. And then you can even kind of tape them all around your hospital room. If you're having a home birth or birth center, string them up wherever you are birthing. And then, so of course you can look at them yourself, but if you have your birth partner there, or your doula, whoever it is, say, hey, I want you to read this to me when I feel, or when it looks like I'm struggling. So birth affirmations are really great for bringing you back to that calm, centered place. The next one is to practice meditation. And a lot of people really hate me when I say this one, because meditation, especially in our go, go, go lifestyle, it's really hard to grasp the concept of meditating. So I want you to know that there is no right or wrong way to meditate. There are also a million different ways that you can do it. So go on YouTube, you can try some of the apps that are out there, find a meditative practice that works for you. Don't wait until you're in labor to try meditation for the first time, because you probably won't be great at it and it won't be all that productive. Try this throughout pregnancy. The next one is doing some breathing exercises, and I'm not talking about the that we're used to seeing on TV. These are just taking calming breaths, okay? One that I really liked that I saw a doula do one time is mom was kind of starting to hyperventilate. She was panicking a little bit, and I can't show you on my own leg, so pretend that this is my leg. What the doula did is she took her hand and she inhaled and exhaled with mom. So she would, role model it. She would say, as she ran her hand up and down mom's leg. So eventually what she did is she stopped essentially breathing in mom's face, but she continued moving her hand up and down, which cued mom to slow her breathing, and it helped. It kept her from having a panic attack. So that was one of my favorite breathing exercises that I've seen. Another one is, I don't know if I would consider this 10 to your mindset or 10 to your body. It's kind of an in-between, but make noise. Don't be afraid to make noise in labor. I promise that everyone who works in labor and delivery, they've heard every odd noise under the sun. You cannot weird them out. They will not judge you. But the sounds actually can help, especially if you're making those deep guttural sounds, like moans and groans. Those can help push baby out because of the diaphragm, how it is moving. So I would definitely recommend not being afraid to make odd noises. The only exception here is I don't want you going high pitched. So generally if moms are going more high pitched, like screaming type of noises, they're starting to panic. So partners who are watching this, if you hear your partner start to go a little more high pitched, she's starting to seem like she's panicking, you know, get knee to knee with her and maybe make those, like make those deep labor noises with her so she doesn't feel silly, okay? So help bring her back to that calm place that she needs to be. All right, and then the last one is also kind of both mindset, kind of body at the same time, is to eat, drink, rest, ignore. That's my midwife's mantra, and it helped me so much in my first labor. So eating and drinking is so important. Obviously, you don't want to eat anything that's really heavy on your stomach. If it's something that will be super unpleasant coming back up, maybe steer away from that. But you want to nourish your body in the earlier phases of labor because you don't want to essentially run out of fuel, okay? So that's the importance of eating and drinking. Rest. I want you to rest as much as possible, especially in early labor, because you don't want to get to, you know, an active labor, and especially if active labor ends up being really long, you don't want to be exhausted by that point. And ignore. I know this sounds really odd to ignore labor, but just continue on with your day. If you hyper focus on labor and are, you know, overanalyzing every little contraction, a lot of times the stress of that can actually stall your labor. And I don't want that to happen. I want your body to progress the way that it wants to progress. So trust me when I say that when it's real labor, you will not be able to ignore it. So just try to stick to eat, drink, rest, ignore as much as possible. All right, so that is tending to your mindset. The next thing is tending to your body. There are lots of different options here. I'm just gonna go through some of the core things. The first one is water. And so we talked about drinking water earlier. What about getting in the water? Having a water labor and even a water birth has so many benefits. Research actually shows that there is no negative or no risks to doing a water labor. So do it, right? So this is both immersion into a tub and then also being in the shower. If you have a hospital room that has a detachable shower head, or you're at home and you have a detachable shower head, super great if you can change it to the setting where it's like a jet setting. That's really great. It's kind of like massage and heat and water all at the same time. It's a perfect combination. So that's a great option. It helps with like buoyancy, so you can still have that. If you're, you know, let's say you're squatting in the tub, you still have the benefit of gravity because you're upright, but at the same time, you don't feel heavy the way you might be when you're on the bed, for example. So that's water. The other thing is massage and acupressure. And there are lots of different points on your body that you can do that are going to help decrease pain in labor, or can even help speed up labor if you have stalled out. I encourage you to look these up, mamanatural.com. It has really awesome resources for that. I know some of them are like right here in the thumb web. Let me think. So the low back, you have lots of points on your low back. One of them being like, you know, where most people call them butt dimples, right in there can help some people. Right in the middle of where a jean pocket would be is another comfortable spot. These are some of the more common acupressure points that moms like, but I encourage you to look into those a little further. I apologize, this is such a bite-sized chunk of the class. If you attend the full class, we'll go more in depth with everything. Another one, actually, I'm going to come back to a couple of those because I'm going to grab my helper, Madison, and she'll help demonstrate some of these. Movement is one of the best things you can do for your body through labor. So getting up and walking, swaying your hips. I'm actually sitting on a birth ball right now and I'll demonstrate more with you. But moving your hips is really good, especially if baby is stuck in a certain position. This is my little pelvis model. As you move it, so like swaying back and forth on the ball causes your hips to kind of do this. So looking from a bottom side view, if baby is stuck and you start doing this, it can kind of help wiggle baby out, right? So that's a really awesome thing that you can be doing. So I encourage moving. Getting up and walking is going to encourage that same kind of motion. Dancing is not only good for moving your hips, but also really fun. So it's going to help with that mindset piece. So you're feeling more relaxed and enjoying the experience a lot better. Trying lots of different positions. This is one thing where there is an endless number of positions that you could try in labor. But moral of the story, anytime you reach any sort of roadblock with birth, whether it be baby's heart rate is slowing a little bit, baby is stuck, you're tired, you're in a lot of pain, the first thing that you should do is try a different position or move a little bit. I don't show too many positions. I'll show some pictures, compilations of pictures, because again, there are an endless number of positions that you could try. So I encourage you to look up different positions and just kind of have those in your memory bank. Because what will happen is, especially if you are feeling your discomfort, you're instinctively going into certain positions, but let's say you're in a certain position and it's no longer working for you. If you have all these images in your mind, you kind of have that memory bank and you say, well, this isn't working right now. Let me try this other one that looked like it might be helpful. So you can try that. All right, and then let me go get my, my buddy Madison. She's gonna help me demonstrate a couple of these things. Hey Madison, can I borrow you please? All right, and I'm gonna reposition here. This is Madison. She's gonna help show us some of the things here. Okay, so first we're gonna do counter pressure. So if you could go on all fours, leaning against the ball. Birth ball is one of my favorite tools, and I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. Yep, so you can relax into it. So what you're gonna do is you'll find right about where her G line is. It's also, again, talking about those butt dimples there. It's kind of that space right between the butt dimples, a little bit down. And what you do is you just take the heel of your hand and you press against her, okay? You listen to what she feels she needs. She might want more pressure or less pressure. So for partners who are watching this, just get some feedback from her on that. Make sure okay, perfect. Okay. Another one are hip squeezes that moms really like. So what you'll find is it's kind of right about the outside of where a jean pocket would be. And then you'll take the heels of your hands. So my hands are going to be pushing in and up. Okay. So you're going to push in and up. So you can see that I'm kind of pushing her forward a little bit, but usually moms like that pressure. Some moms like it a little higher, some moms like it a little lower, kind of depending on where they are in labor. But that's another great option for lots of moms. One thing I like to point out for partners is that doing these can be really, really strenuous on you, especially if you're doing it for a long time. So I always recommend that you watch your own back. If you're hunched over doing this, you're gonna tire out really quickly. So I always, spread your legs, give them a little bend, and keep your spine neutral while you're doing this. Otherwise, you're really gonna kill yourself. So you can see Madison is on the birth ball right now. This was one of my favorite positions while I was in labor. So you can see she can rock her hips back and forth really easy. Yeah, so she spread her legs just a little bit so she could rock back and forth. You can see that nothing is pressing on her belly, so she feels safe there. She can also sit on it. She can rock her hips back and forth. You can put the ball up on a hospital birth bed and lean against it that way. You can even take it into the shower with you if you'd like. There are lots of great options there. All right. The other one I wanted to show you was a rebozo. So these come out of, I'm gonna pull it up just a little bit here. So these come out of Mexico. This one is not a true rebozo, I apologize, but essentially it's just a flat woven scarf-like material. So you can see it's wide enough that it would fit around a belly, okay? So if it's like one of those knitted scarves, it's not gonna do the job. So it shouldn't have too much stretch here, okay? And it should be wide enough that it covers the full belly. So this is another thing, kind of like positions. There are tons of different ways you can use a rebozo. We cover it in the Blue Ridge Women's Center class quite a bit more in detail, but I'm gonna show you a couple of my favorite ones here. So Madison, I'm gonna tuck this around your belly. So she doesn't have a big old pregnant belly right now, but it's gonna go right under the chest, and then you can cinch it so it goes around the bottom of the belly, and she's gonna lean onto that ball again. She doesn't have to be on the ball. She can be leaning against a chair or the hospital bed, whatever. And then you would want it to have enough on the tail ends that you have room you could lift up. So imagine if she had a big old belly here and I were to lift up, that kind of eases some of the gravity for her, helps her with some of that, especially if she's having low back pain. You can do some sifting, kind of sway her back and forth, okay? Those are a few options. And then I want to show you, I think you can come on up now. Another option, oh, and then just to point out, if you don't have a true rebozo or you don't have a scarf, you forgot to bring it, and you're going to the hospital, you can actually ask for an extra flat sheet. So don't ask for a fitted sheet that has the cinching all around the edges, but a flat sheet and then fold it appropriately. And then what you can do, scarf or flat sheet, put a knot in it. I think mine has 2 knots here. You would drape it so that the knot is on the opposite side of the door, close the door all the way, don't, make sure there's no crack. And then I like to have 2 so that you have 2 places to hold on to. And then squatting into it. A lot of moms really like that overhead when they can kind of pull down. So doing this in labor helps a lot of moms, okay? There are other things you can do with a rebozo, like wrap it around your partner's shoulders, and then you can kind of do that squatting motion on them. Again, there's a whole slew of things that you can do when it comes to a rebozo. Let me make sure. I think that's it. Thank you. All right, guys. Okay. Coming back to some of the other, especially tools that you can use. Peanut ball is another one. I left my peanut ball in the other room, but it's essentially a peanut-shaped ball. And it's really awesome, especially for things like when you're lying on the bed, you can go on your side, put it between your knees, go into different positions with it. And it can help kind of reposition your pelvis in different ways that, again, could help baby come out, especially if they're getting stuck in one spot. Essential oils are another really great option. Lavender is super calming. Peppermint is great, especially if you're having like muscle aches and pains. Citruses are great if you are feeling really fatigued. It's really energizing, which can be in a weird way calming for people. If you are stalling out in labor, clary sage is a really great option for you. There are a few other options, but those are kind of the key ones there. And then another thing that you'll see in your hospital room is a squat bar. So all of the beds should have a squat bar. You just have to ask your nurse if you can pull it up. And then that'll help you have that squatting, like pulling type of motion. All right, that is what I have for Tend to Your Body. I know that that was a really brief overview, but just let me know if you're interested in taking the full class. We'll go over them in a lot more detail. All right, and then the last, so we started with Tend to Your Mind, next was Tend to Your Body, and this last one was Tend to Your Environment. So the key things there are the place and the people. So one exercise I like to do with my parents who I'm working with is I say, grab pen and paper, sit down for 5 minutes and draw your ideal birth. Who's there? What does it look like? What do you have around you? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? Those types of things that maybe we haven't really thought of. But it's always really cool when partners work together, and usually there's lots of giggling. It's a very fun exercise to do. Getting to see what you want your birth to look like, because if you can visualize it, you're more likely to achieve it. It does not have to be a pretty picture. It can be stick figures. I know mine is stick figures, but I would encourage you to take some time to do that with your partner. Another thing with the place is using labor and birth playlists. So my favorite music therapist, Noelle Anderson, told me that in the same way that you go through different moods for music just on a day-to-day basis, you may go through different moods for music throughout labor. So I encourage you to have different playlists ready for if you go through different moods for music. Next one is having low lighting. So low lighting in general is just really calming for most people. But the other thing to point out is that it's actually going to stimulate the hormones that are very calming and are going to help you be in that so your nervous system has two different modes of function. There's fight or flight, which is your stress response, and then there's the opposite side, which is more calming, and it's a much better place to be for birth. So low lighting is going to stimulate the hormones that are going to encourage you onto the calming side of your nervous system function. And then the last thing for the place is to limit distractions. So good news for everyone who's birthing during COVID is they're limiting, they're not having as many people come into the room who don't need to be there, which I know sometimes is hard when we're talking about family who you might have wanted to be in the delivery room, but it's really good when we're talking about hospital staff who you maybe didn't want to be in the room. They've limited the number of people who are coming in unnecessarily. So that's good on limiting distractions, but don't feel like you have to be texting everyone and updating them or having the TV on if that distracts you. It needs to be your environment. Limit distractions if you don't want them around so that you can really focus on your body and your birth. And then the other one is people. So like I said, they've limited the number of people who can be in there. So that's good and bad if you wanted certain family members. But I also want to point out that this means that you should be especially particular about who is going to be in your room. I say this as a recommendation for everyone at all times. If someone is not a cheerleader for your birth, if they stress you out whatsoever, they should not be in the room with you. So I don't care how much your mom or your mother-in-law wants to be there, they should not be there if you don't feel encouraged and empowered and cheered on by them. So that may mean that you have a few tough conversations, but just know that I support you in only having cheerleaders in the room. Another thing with people is hiring a doula. I know a lot of people are concerned about doulas. Maybe you're not comfortable with them. And this is a very intimate moment. So, but find someone who you are comfortable with. Every doula is different, and every doula meshes with clients differently. So find the person who's right for you. Another concern is that people feel like maybe the doula will take the place of dad, for example, and that's not true. A good doula is actually going to make the dad look like a rock star. They're going to show them how to help better so that they can look like they know what they're doing in birth, which is really awesome. Another thing you can do for the people who are in the room is discuss your birth plan with your provider ahead of time. So this is just basically to see if your provider is a cheerleader for your birth plan. Your provider is another person who also needs to be a cheerleader for you in the room. And if they're not, maybe it's time to find a different provider. All right, so those are my top 3 tips. 10 to your mind, 10 to your body, and 10 to your environment. Like I said, we go through all of these a lot more in depth. We're going to show lots more examples. If you take the full Blue Ridge Women's series or Blue Ridge Women's Center birth class series, and I would love to have you there. So just let me know if you want more information about that. You can send me an email at drkimmie@cfcairova.com. We'll have that information posted in my bio. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you got lots of great information out of this. Bye.